Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Now today I'm going to talk about week 23 matches of the Overwatch League Countdown Cup. Obviously this is the penultimate week until the actual tournament Countdown Cup. But before we get into that, let's talk about the last week of the regular season and the Countdown Cup, that being week 24, and there'll be no East matches. So obviously these 6 teams from the West region have not finished their season. So the NYXL versus the London Spitfire, that'll be first. And then we got the Paris Eternal versus the San Francisco Shock. And then the Florida Mayhem versus the Toronto Defiant. And then next we have the San Francisco Shock against the London Spitfire. The NYXL versus the Boston Uprising. The Florida Mayhem versus the Houston Outlaws. And the Boston Uprising versus the that's October 15th. And then next one we got only 2 matches, but the Boston Uprising versus the Paris Eternal and the Houston Outlaws versus the Toronto Defiant. Now, there's been some interesting stuff happening on the standings, but obviously we need to go through the week 23 results before we talk about the standings. And let's have a look. This is what it looks like right here. So the first one we'll also talk about is the East, and we have the Chungju Spark versus the Seoul Dynasty. And I'm very surprised that the Chungju Spark actually won this. Pineapple gained MVP. I don't know what Seoul was doing in this match, but I mean, maybe they were sandbagging, but maybe Spark were a lot stronger though than I was expecting, than anyone was really expecting, I guess. It really puzzled me of that they won against the Seoul Dynasty, which they are the best. I mean, they are definitely the best team in the East region. But the Sparks also been struggling. They've been trying to get into the playoffs. They will be in the Countdown Cup though, and there'll be 1 spot up for grabs in the East region. So maybe the Spark might get that, maybe even the Valiant, maybe even the Charge. But other than that, I mean, it's really confusing that the Dynasty, who beat out the Charge, the Valiant, the Dragons, they lose all the teams in all of the teams that they lost to, that being the Hangzhou Spark, which they have struggled through this whole qualifiers and the Countdown Cup, and I really thought they were like out of contention, maybe possibly 6th or something. But apparently they didn't, and here they are. They beat out a Seoul Dynasty, and I think that solidified their spot into the Countdown Cup tournament. So at least that's alright for that. Next up, we got the Chengdu Charge versus the LA Valiant. Now, I did talk about this match beforehand on last video, and I did say look out for this match because this match will basically determine who's going to be in the Countdown Cup, either the Chengdu Charge or the LA Valiant. It was the Chengdu Charge. So the Charge will be in the Countdown Cup. In the tournament, the LA Valiant has been eliminated for the rest of the season. So the Shanghai Dragons match was actually the last match of the season, and to be fair, the Valiant did pretty well. They actually won a lot of matches, and they surprised some people as well. Especially, I mean, I thought they were gonna make it to a tournament at least. Not only do well in the tournament, but like at least make it to the tournament. It was very, very competitive that they made all the matches. So I think if you're a Valiant fan, I think that should be a positive, a very, very good season. Obviously, any season can top that horrible last year that they had. But this season was really, really good, and I'm really happy about that. Obviously, if you are a Valiant fan, I think you should be really happy of this result. Obviously, they did lose to the Chengdu Charge, which I thought they were maybe like that. This was probably a match for them that they could probably win and advance themselves into the Countdown Cup tournament, but sadly, it didn't happen. Troy Selwyn gained MVP, but still, if you are a Valiant fan, I think you should be pretty happy with that result. Next up, a 3-0 victory for the Houston Outlaws against the Paris Eternal. No surprises there. Last year again MVP. I don't know what else to say. It was just a very, very convincing win for the Houston Outlaws against the Eternal. A very close match was the Boston Uprising versus the Washington Justice, and it was Decay getting MVP, meaning the Justice won that. Very, very close game. That's all I really have to say, really. Both of these teams will be in the Countdown Cup. I think Boston's loss against the Gladiators kind of solidified themselves into the playoffs. Into the Countdown Cup. The Justice still has a pretty good chance on making it to the playoffs. There's 1 spot remaining. So these couple matches next week is going to be very interesting, because So, because some of these teams have a very good chance of making it. Other than the uprising, I think some 6th to 11th have a oh, sorry, no, so 6th to 9th, I'm pretty sure. All those teams have a very good chance of making it to the playoffs, which will definitely help that team who advances to the playoffs. Another team who's looking for a seed in the playoffs is the Florida Mayhem, who they won against the Vancouver Titans in a surprisingly very close game. Someone gained MVP. It was actually a reverse sweep as well. The Titans have been looking pretty good in this whole tournament. It was very, very weird. First of all, I mean, week 21 they didn't do well. Week 22 they were pretty decent. They won against the Defiant, and this one was also pretty decent as well. Two very close games. Luckily, I mean, they did lose one, but they won a very close game. So at least Titans also making this competitive as well. But there was no shot that the Titans were actually going to make it into the Countdown Cup tournament. It would have been very, very close, but it didn't come to fruition. So I think this one, or maybe it was the Toronto one that knocked them out of contention in the tournament. So move over to the East. It was a 3-0 victory for the Guangzhou Charge against the Hangzhou Spark. You see what I mean? That they're very inconsistent. Like, one day they'll be like really good and they somehow beat out Seoul Dynasty. Then the other one they've just been absolutely dog shit and got beaten out by the second worst team in the East region. Xerneas, he gets MVP, obviously, just like I said, formerly named Evotal. I don't know what else to say. A very clean sweep for the Guangzhou Charge. Another clean sweep which goes to the Shanghai Dragons against the LA Valiant. Void get MVP. I don't know if this might be his first MVP of the season, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not too sure. I don't think so, actually, but he hasn't been able to get an MVPs throughout this whole season, other than last year where he had quite a few MVPs. But very easy game for the Dragons, as you can see. The Philadelphia Fusion versus the Chungju Hunters, and I think this match solidified themselves into the playoffs. So the top 3 teams, I'm pretty sure that the top 3 teams have advanced into the playoffs. There have been Seoul Dynasty, the Shanghai Dragons, and the Philadelphia Fusion. Obviously, everyone else below, other than the Valiant, who were eliminated out of the season, they still have a chance of making it to the playoffs as a 1 seed. So there is only 1 seed remaining for the East region. So maybe possibility, maybe the Hunters might win that. I feel like, I mean, there's a lot of, I think the team that has a lot more, has a pretty good chance of making it is probably maybe the Hunters. The Sparkles has a pretty good chance as well. The Charge would be taking a miracle if they did, I'll be honest. But they have been looking really, really good now. They're currently on a win streak, so expect maybe the Guangzhou Charge to actually surprise everyone off their tails and actually beat out the Spark and the Hunters. I mean, they beat out the Spark, and I think they also beat out the Hunters as well, if I remember correctly. I'm still trying to look for that, as I'm saying on screen. No, they actually lost against the Hunters by a very close game, but still, either way, as you can see right here, it was actually the Hunters winning that one against the Charge, but still very, very close game either way. The Future still winning, Fury again MVP. So move over to the West region, that being the Atlanta Reign versus the Florida Mayhem. It was the Atlanta Reign winning a very, very close game. 3-2 victory for the Reign against the Mayhem. I'm surprised actually how close it was, but the Mayhem have been very up and down most of the season. It's like some points they've been like really, really good and look pretty unstoppable. Sometimes they've been looking absolute dog crap. And this one they've been looking pretty subpar. Very, very good as well for the season. The Mayhem still, just like I said, still looking for a spot in the playoffs. And the Atlanta Reign have done it, and they have actually made it to the playoffs. So they will skip the Countdown Cup as they finish in 5th place behind everyone else. In front of them, that being Cruiser Fuel, the Shock, the Gladiators, and the Outlaws, which after they win against the Dallas Fuel, which we'll get to actually after this one. Let's then move over to the Gladiators versus the Justice, and looks like the Gladiators have finally sorted themselves out after a very difficult last tournament of the Summer Showdown. The Gladiators won a 3-1 victory against the Justice. Obviously, it was Happy, ironically, gained MVP. Obviously, if you don't know, Happy was formerly from the Justice before he joined the Gladiators. So it's pretty ironic that Happy got to verse his old team, and he got the MVP from that. Ilias is basically a wipeout for the Justice, but I mean the other match has been also pretty close, especially maybe even Kolios. Well, Coliseum of how the announcer says it, but still, the Gladiators gained the win against Justice, and Happy winning against his old team. The Battle of Texas came in as well, and it was the Houston Outlaws winning against the Dallas Fuel. This one kind of surprised me. I guess it's maybe because it was like land, it was Battle of Texas, so I meant everything. I think the Fuel won the first one, if I remember correctly. I'm pretty sure they did, and then the Outlaws now win this one. So yeah, I mean, it was also at Arlington, at the Esports Stadium, Arlington. Pretty good venue there, and the Outlaws winning that one against technically maybe the home crowd, but I think it was mainly I think the crowd was mainly Dallas Fuel fans. So it is what it is, though. American MVP. Let's now move over to the Shanghai Dragons versus the Chengdu Hunters, and it was a 3-0 victory for the Shanghai Dragons against the Hunters. No surprises there. Floyd again MVP. What I really want to talk about is this one. This is obviously another LAN. It was the Seoul Dynasty versus the Philadelphia Fusion. It was a 3-2 victory for the Dynasty. Now, this was played at Seoul at the WDG Esports Studio at Seoul. So I think there was I'm pretty sure there was a crowd. Might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there was a crowd there. Maybe not, but surprised. I'm surprised. I mean, actually, I'm not really though. The Fusion have been looking decent. Their first week in the kickoff clash, I'm pretty sure they were unstoppable. They looked like the best team in the East region until they kind of fell off in the next two tournaments, in June Joust and the Summer Showdown. But then here in the Countdown Cup, they've been looking decent. They've been losing some pretty close games though, which is a bit of an issue because they can't really finish that off. So I think they need to kind of fix on that. But other than that, I mean, this is a pretty decent result by the Fusion. If you're the Dynasty, I guess you'd be a bit worried that you see maybe some cracks in how the Dynasty plays, and Fusion have been obviously been on that right now, especially in this match. So I mean, getting to the playoffs, obviously this will be on lane. This will be over in America. I think at Anaheim, or maybe it is at Arlington. Oh no, it starts the letter A. I'm pretty sure it is Anaheim. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, so Dynasty still looking really good. Next up, we got the Vancouver Titans versus the Paris Eternal. Now, I call this a toilet bowl as well. The toilet bowl, part 50. I don't know, but all I knew, it was going to be a very close match and a very weird looking match. The Vancouver Titans actually won this. Aztec and MVP. I think this might be Aztec. Actually, no. I think Aztec has got an MVP before. I think sometime during the season. But this also solidifies that the Eternal is the worst team in this league. I mean, I think they do have just a team full of rookies, and I'm guessing that maybe the rookies aren't too familiar with how competitive the Overwatch League is. And they've been struggling a lot, because obviously they've been used to the contenders, but here they've been struggling heaps. So the Titans have won it, but I feel kind of bad for the Eternal guys. Next up, we got the Dallas Fuel versus the Atlanta Reign. No idea who got MVP, but it was the Dallas Fuel winning that one. Finally, the guess, let's just guess. Hanbin getting MVP. Good job. I'm just guessing really, because there's no MVP there. But close game either way. But the Fuel did edge it out. It was very weird that they lost to the Outlaws, but they went against the Reign. I mean, I guess the Outlaws. I mean, no, the Fuel was actually first seed if I remember in the West region. So I don't understand how the hell they lost to the Outlaws. I guess Battle of Texas kind of means everything, so it kind of makes sense though. But here, pretty I guess maybe, pretty convincing, I guess we'll say, for the Fuel against the Reign. And finally, the LA Gladiators versus the Boston Uprising. It was Ryan again MVP, which means that the Gladiators won this one. Basically a swamp. Very, very quick game. Well, not actually that quick. Dorado was definitely interesting for the Gladiators against the Uprising. It was basically the Uprising domination Dorado, but all the other maps, pure domination by the Gladiators. So with the penultimate week now done and the final week coming up, let's have a look at the standings as we go over to the final week. So first off with the West region, and currently now the LA Gladiators have moved themselves up to second place behind the Dallas Fuel, still 1 point separating them, and a further 2 points with the San Francisco Shock. So the Shock actually has let me have a look. So I think the Shock has a pretty good chance a pretty good chance of maybe overtaking the Dallas Fuel as a top seed in the West region. And behind them we have the Houston Outlaws, and for the 4 points behind them it is the Atlanta Reign. And then this is where this is just where everyone's eyes is at right now. So London Spitfire currently holds the last seed of the playoffs. However, the next 3 teams are separated by 1 point, other than the Justice and the Mayhem, who are tied on points. So we have the Toronto Defiant, 14 points, the Washington Justice and the Florida Mayhem on 13 points, and then we got the Boston Uprising, who's in 8 points. Basically, he has been locked. Basically, they have been locked into the Countdown Cup, so they still have a pretty good chance of making it to the playoffs. In 11th, 12th, and 13th, we have the Vancouver Titans, the NYXL, and the Paris Eternal, who is still looking for that second win, but that's probably not going to happen due to how tough their matches are when against a Shock. The Uprising maybe, but I'll be very surprised if the Shock wins that against the Eternal Hornal. That might be the biggest upset of this season. So move over to the East. Not a lot of stuff is really changing. We have the Seoul Dynasty versus the Shanghai Dragons, 2 points separating them, and then we have the Philadelphia Fusion in 3rd place. And then we have the Hangzhou Spark, the Guangzhou Charge, and the Chengdu Hunters. That's basically set for the Countdown Cup. And then we have the LA Valiant down in last place after failing to win their other 2 matches. So the Spark, Charge, and Hunters, they still have a chance. Obviously, this is just for Chinese teams. So one of these Chinese teams will be making it to Anaheim. I'm pretty sure. Is it Anaheim? Is that where the playoffs is set? Anaheim, yes, at the Anaheim Convention Center. Now, obviously, this is what it looks like right now. So the Dallas Fuel, either the Gladiators or the Shock, depending on the amount of wins they have. The Houston Outlaws, I feel like the Atlanta Reign should be on this as well because they actually know. I think it depends. There's basically a lot of confusion. We know that the Reign is in the playoffs no matter what. I think it depends on maybe the let's have a look. So depending on the Spitfire can win 2, can win 2. Depending on maybe the Fire can win 2. Actually it has to be 2. I think they have to win. The Justice currently doing much. They kind of have to hope that one of them stumble to somehow make it. Like if actually no, they can't actually. So the Justice is bound and set in the LCQ, I keep saying the LCQ, in the Countdown Cup tournament. Bound and set. I don't think there's any way that they're making it into the playoffs mathematically. But the Florida Mayhem, but the Mayhem can still overtake them if they win the next 2 matches, which obviously counts to 15 points. And if the Spitfire don't win their matches or the Defiant, the Mayhem still have a chance. So the Justice doesn't matter. They are bound. They will be in the Countdown Cup. The other 3, that being the Spitfire, Defiant, and the Mayhem, all those 3 teams have a chance of making it into the playoffs and avoiding the Countdown Cup. So there's a lot of stuff going on, especially in the West region. I can't speak right now because of how crazy it is. So that is what it looks like as of right now. So just a reminder as well that the final couple matches on week 24, obviously, I think all these matches will definitely be one to watch out for. Maybe not the one with the Eternals on it. Sorry, Paris Eternal fans, but I'm not too sure about that one. But definitely the ones that you see with Spitfire, Mayhem, and the Defiant. All those teams have a chance of making it to the playoffs. I don't think the Uprising even have a chance because obviously there's 2 matches, and obviously if we look at their points, they have 10 points basically. So the Uprising will be in the Countdown Cup, either way, including the Justice. But obviously, the teams that had Spitfire, Mayhem, or the Defiant on it, that would definitely mean a lot. So that's really about it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Catch you guys all next time in the next one. Goodbye.